There was a version of me that existed online. She had good lighting and the right caption and a life that looked like it was going exactly the way it was supposed to go. That version of me had thousands of people who believed in her completely, including, for a while, me. The real version of me was sitting in the same room taking the photo and then putting the phone down and going back to whatever was actually happening, which was not the photo, not even close. It started small, the way these things always do. A photo from a good day, a caption that leaned slightly more positive than I actually felt, a comment section full of people saying, "You look so happy," and me thinking, yes, I do look that way, do I not? I learned quickly what performed well and what did not. Vulnerability performed well if it was the resolved kind, the kind with a lesson at the end, the kind where I'd already figured it out and was sharing the wisdom from the other side. Raw, ongoing falling apart did not perform well, so I kept that offline. Year one was manageable. I genuinely had good moments. The posts were exaggerated versions of real things. The gap between the online version and the offline version was maybe 10 or 20%. I told myself that was normal. Everyone curates. Year two, the gap got wider. Things in my actual life were becoming harder in ways I was not talking about to anyone. Relationship things, money things, the slow erosion of something I could not name. And online, I was posting about gratitude and growth and mornings that looked like magazine covers. I remember a specific afternoon in year two. I had spent the previous night crying in a way I had not cried in years. I woke up with a swollen face and I did my skincare and I took a photo near the window and I posted it with a caption about new beginnings. 43 people told me I was glowing. I read every single comment, and for about 40 minutes the comments did something. They filled something, the way a painkiller feels something without fixing anything. Then the 40 minutes were over and the silence came back, and it was louder than before. I started needing the comments more. The frequency of posting went up. The gap between who I was online and who I was in my apartment at 2 in the morning went wider and wider until they were not the same person at all. They were two different characters sharing one body. The exhausting part that nobody talks about is the maintenance. Keeping two versions of yourself coherent is actual work. If I had a hard week, I had to remember not to post anything that would contradict the version of the week I'd already presented. The online timeline had to stay consistent. I started avoiding people who knew me in real life, not dramatically, just quietly, because people who knew me in real life could see the gap. They could see that the person in the posts and the person in the room were not matching, and I was not ready to answer those questions. My oldest friend called me one evening and said, "I've been watching your posts and then talking to you and I'm confused. You seem fine online and you seem not fine when I talk to you. Which one is true?" I said both, which was the most honest thing I had said in 2 years and also completely useless as an answer. Year three, I was exhausted in a way that sleep did not fix. The performance had become my whole metabolism. I woke up thinking about what I would post. I went through experiences thinking about how I would frame them. I had optimized myself out of actually having the experiences I was performing having. There was one night in year three where I sat down to write a caption for a photo and I could not do it. I sat there for 40 minutes and I could not find a single sentence that felt like anything other than a lie. I put the phone down and I did not pick it up again that night. That night without the phone was the strangest night I had had in years. I didn't know what to do with myself without the performance. I sat in my apartment and I felt the actual shape of things, not the caption version, the actual version. And it was bad. It was genuinely, honestly bad. I called a friend, not a text, an actual call. I hadn't done that in a long time. She picked up and I said, "I think I'm not okay, and I haven't been okay for a while." There was a long pause and then she said, "I know, I've been waiting for you to say that." She had known. The people who actually knew me had known. They had been watching me post my way through something real and waiting for me to come back to the actual conversation. I had been so focused on the audience that I had disappeared on the people who actually cared. I took a break from posting, not a dramatic break with a long caption about mental health, just stopped. For 3 weeks, I posted nothing. In the first week, I checked my follower count every day, convinced it was collapsing. It was not collapsing. Almost nothing changed. That was its own revelation. The world didn't actually need the performance. I had been performing for an audience that was fine without the show. The urgency was entirely internal. The pressure was entirely self-generated. In the silence of not performing, I started to find out what was actually happening with me. Things I had been too busy posting about growth to actually grow through. Grief I had turned into content before I had finished feeling it. Fears I had reframed as lessons before I had sat with them long enough to understand them.
I went back to therapy. I had stopped going in year 2 because I was posting about growth, and it felt contradictory to also be sitting in a therapy office admitting I wasn't growing, which is one of the most absurd things I've ever done, performing wellness while quietly refusing the actual medicine for it. Therapy without the performance was different. I couldn't arrive having already packaged the thing into a lesson. I just had to arrive and say, here's what's actually happening, and I don't know what it means yet. That felt terrible and necessary in equal measure. I started telling the truth online, slowly, not dramatically, small true things instead of large performed things. A post that said, I'm having a hard week and I don't have a lesson for it yet. The response was different from anything I had posted in 3 years. People said, me too. People said, thank you for saying that. People said, I thought I was the only one. The thing about authenticity that nobody tells you is that it's much less work than performance. I had been exhausted for 3 years by the labor of maintaining something false. When I stopped, the exhaustion started lifting almost immediately. Not because my life got easier, because I stopped carrying the extra weight of pretending it wasn't what it was. The follower count changed. Some people left. I had built an audience for a character, and when the character changed, some of the audience left with her. That was uncomfortable and also clarifying. The people who stayed were staying for something real. And that smaller, real thing was worth more than the larger performed thing. I rebuilt my relationship with my oldest friend, the one who had asked which version was true. I owed her a real answer, and I gave her one over a long dinner that went 3 hours past when either of us planned to leave. That dinner was the most honest conversation I had had in years, and it felt like drinking water after a very long time of being thirsty. I still post, I want to be honest about that. I didn't quit and go live in the woods, but the relationship with it is different now. I post from the inside of things rather than from the packaged other side of them. I post things that are true while they're happening rather than after I've made them safe. The comments are different now, not because there are more of them, because they feel like contact rather than transaction. When someone says me too now, it lands differently than it did when I was performing, because now we're actually meeting somewhere real. 3 years is a long time to pretend. I don't say that to shame myself, because shame is not useful here. I say it so that if you're somewhere in the middle of your own version of this, you understand that I know how long the middle can be, and I know how much work the performance takes, and I know that underneath all of it, the real version of you has been waiting patiently for you to come back. The photo that started all of this is still in my camera roll somewhere. Good lighting, right caption, a version of me that looked like everything was fine. I look at it sometimes, not with anger, with something closer to compassion. She was doing the best she knew how to do with what she had, but I'm glad I'm not her anymore. I'm glad I came back to the room.